All righty. Well, welcome everybody. So good to see everyone today. Thank you so much for coming and being part of this webinar. I'm so excited to see you. I've been thinking about this topic for a long time, and I'm really excited to share. So all kinds of fun, interesting horse wisdom to share for leadership. So we're going to go ahead. I think we'll have some folks kind of popping in a little bit, and I'll just let them come in as they go. I want to honor the time. I really appreciate you guys all being here today. As many of you know, I'm a lifelong horse lover, super passionate. Being around horses, being with horses has pretty much driven every decision in my life, including who I married. I married my farrier. How convenient is that? Huh? So, and I've also worked in corporate and been a serial entrepreneur. So been trying, because you got to pay for these horses, right? So lots of different aspects that I'm coming from my own background as someone who's worked in the business world for a long time now. Gosh, it's over 30 years at this point. And also as an entrepreneur, creating a new business, working with multiple horses, not as a professional horse trainer, but trying to be the best horsewoman as I possibly can be, as a rider, as a caretaker, as a partner. All of those things are super important to me. So today, what I want to share with you and what I will share with you are some of the top lessons that I've learned over the past several years from experimenting and exploring with lots of different horse training techniques, and also working with leaders, working as a coach, all kinds of things. Because what I find is there's this really tremendous intersection between the animal world, who can't lie, there's no falsehood there. They are who they are, and they give us such beautiful insight into trust and honesty and what's possible. And then we have the human condition and all of our social and cultural conditioning that kind of layers over sometimes some of our true authentic self. And that can really get in the way of our leadership at points. So I think what I'm going to do is just jump right in. Hold your questions. What I want to do is present the content. I know there's some folks who are going to want to drop off because they have other things going on. So I will present the content. It'll be maybe a half hour at tops, and then we'll open the line for Q&A and discussion and go from there. All right, everybody hear me okay? Quick little thumbs up. Yep, good. Thank you so much. Woohoo. Excellent. So let's go ahead here with the screen share. Move you guys over here. Great. Let's see. Get this. Okay. Everybody see that? Little thumbs up. See the screen? Yes. Okay, good. So I named this Empower Success 10 Keys to Leadership Excellence. And we're just going to jump right in. So today your guide is Lemon Squeezy, and he is a member of my herd. He's a treasured member of my herd. He was also a winning ex-racehorse, which he will tell you all about if you talk to him. Very proud of his career as an athlete. And he's been helping me over the past a little bit over 4 years now with learning how to be a better horsewoman, and I'm still aspiring on that front, and rider and teacher and coach. And as many of you guys know, horses react to your energy, your clarity, and your level of self-trust. So we need to be as clear as we possibly can be, and we need to be that same type of clarity of intent and solid, calm energy of trust with our human companions as well in whatever work you're involved in, because that gives them a really great sense of safety. And horses have their own stuff. So when I hear some coaches and some folks talk about how horses reflect you and this and that, well, yeah, and they also have their own individual personalities and their own backgrounds, their own baggage, and their own preferences. So I always take that a little bit with a grain of salt, and I think about what's right in front of me. So we're going to go on a little journey here with Lemon Squeezy and see what he has to say about some of these key success tips. So there's 10 of these, and I'll go through these as we go through. We can kind of talk about each one and highlight some of the specifics on it. And then at the end, I'll give you a summary of all 10, and then we'll do the Q&A. So some of this I've learned from working through Mustang Maddie, who is a wonderful horse trainer. She's a very accomplished young woman, and she's used a variety of horse training methods over her career, and you can check her out. Most recently, she's adopted positive reinforcement training. She's used negative reinforcement training, and there's no judgment on any of that. But I just went through her course with Lemon Squeezy to learn some new techniques. And one of the things they talk about is knowing the antecedent arrangement. And what they mean by that is know the setting. This is my interpretation of it anyway, is know what you're going into. So know if you're working with a horse, know what they're coming from, what's going on in their herd. You know, is it dinner time? Was it dinner time? Have they been outside? Have they been in the stall? Are they getting bullied in the field? You know, kind of get a sense of the environment there. And the same thing is true about humans and leadership. As leaders, we want to get a sense of the environment. So I have a picture here of the barn and the indoor arena, which could simulate your office environment or a conference room or a virtual conference room even. And think about your own energy when you're going into this space. And you know, what happened to you before? Where are you coming from? What energy are you bringing with you? What I talk about here, I have this word up here, you know, your energy vectors. What I mean by that is I think all of us may be familiar with the energy with which we walk through the world. And that's a lot around your emotions. You might be a little scared, you might be intense, you might be scattered, you might be positive. These are all different kinds of energies. You might be, you know, super trusting. You might feel a little skeptical, which is a little lack of trust. All of these things. This is awareness. The thing with the vectors that's really important is they are direction and intensity of the energy. So which direction the energy is pointing, and this includes past, present, and future. So there's a time component to this. So you want to think about your energy when you're walking around with your energy. Even right now, we think about, you know, am I present? Am I thinking about what just happened in a meeting right before I came onto this webinar, or something that may be happening right after this webinar? So noticing where the direction of your energy is focused is important. And then the intensity would be, how strong is that grab? You know, how does it need to be dialed up, down? Can you neutralize it? What can you do with that energy? That's really, really important. So this antecedent arrangement would be like, let's say you're in leadership and you need to have a difficult conversation with somebody, maybe one of your partners at work. We want to make sure that they're able to hear you, that they can really listen to you. And that's why I have this statement here about have the right conversation with the right person at the right time. Oftentimes we have our own agenda and we move forward with it, and it's not the right time. The person either is not emotionally available, is fully present, or able to really receive because they're either blocked by fear or some distraction or something else. So as leaders, we want to be able to maneuver and be flexible and agile enough to get in that space where we can either neutralize that vibe, that energy, and create the environment, which we'll talk about in a minute, or just hold the meeting or hold the event or hold whatever that thing is at another time where it's more important. So with a horse, this would show up, you know, you go out and you're like, yeah, I'm going to go do my 3-foot course or something today. And I used to do a lot of eventing. I'd have this whole plan go out. Yeah, you know, I'll do my strides and my pace on my whole thing. And you know, she's totally checked out, and she's got something else on her mind. Something happened in the herd. There's a new horse in the herd that she's worried about, so she's screaming and running. And yeah, not a good day to start practicing my 3-foot beautiful pace. So we lower it down. So those are some things to think about. We'll build on this as we go. So in this case, this is kind of a scenario. Cali had some things on her mind. I went out to work with Lemon Squeezy, and you can think about what this might look like for you in the work environment or the business environment. You know, you go out there with your plan. You're like, yeah, I'm going to go do this. My energy's all good. It's perfect. I'm positive. I've got time. You know, it's all perfect. Weather's good. And you go out and you get your horse, or go with your person, and then you've got some kind of serious drama happening over here. Mind you, Cali is in her 20s. She's 26 now. And I'm getting a kick out of this because my first thought was, wow, she's really getting off the ground pretty nice there for an old lady. But the point here is the antecedent arrangement for me and Lemon Squeezy to do what we needed to do was not good. So I needed to relocate that. I was going to do a little something with him and the cones there, and we actually had to move. And if you look at from the perspective of energy vectors, look at the direction of energy, right? So you have all three. This is Noble on the left, is the chestnut. Noble, Lemon Squeezy, and me all pointing our energy at Cali, because she's stolen the show, and she's got some intensity there with her energy. So it completely hijacked whatever I had on my mind. So think about what that might be like at work. And then there's another scenario where, you know, you go in and you've got your reliable teammate who's ready to do something, and then, you know, he's just been bothered by something. And so Lemon Squeezy, in this case, he and I were working, he was great. And then I guess Noble just got too close to the fence or something, and Lemon Squeezy left me, went running over there to have some words with Noble, because he just couldn't work like that. And you know, I've had that same kind of thing at work. I remember many times being in meetings where, you know, somebody wouldn't shut off their cell phone and they've got to take this call. Meanwhile, they're critical to the meeting, but now they're distracted. They have to step outside. So what do? And you go redirect the whole meeting, you have to think about these things. So this is what the knowing what the setting is, and then being able to be flexible and agile so that you can still stay in your own place of power as a leader and affect the type of progress that you want. You may not get to the end result that you're looking for, but you want to be able to make a little bit of progress. And what ended up happening here is after Lemon Squeezy had words with Noble, he came running right back to me, and he was 100% with me. So that was pretty cool. So the second key is relationship first, which you kind of saw a little bit in the first two slides. Be the safe place. So we want to really be listening to what's happening in the situation. As a leader, what often happens, we have so many external pressures from work, from a board, from all kinds of different folks, other teammates, could be a new client or an acquisition partner or something, and we have a really important agenda that we want to move forward. And what happens if we get too narrowly focused on that agenda, even if everyone's agreed beforehand to move forward with that agenda, listen in the meeting, because there may be some blockers that you will not hear if you're only moving your agenda forward. And if you're listening carefully, you'll be able to hear the little tiny concerns and nip them in the bud and start questioning and poking around at that point before it escalates, 6 weeks, 6 months later, and now it's some big blown up ordeal that might even stop you from moving forward. So this is Lemon Squeezy as an example. He was working with a group, and they were getting a little too close. He was giving them all kinds of warning signs, and they were completely oblivious. And so you can see his little pinny ears there. He's not a very happy face. And the funny thing about this is he's free. He could go anywhere he wanted. So he could move away from them, but he chose to stand there and make nasty face at anybody who came near him. That was his way of managing. And maybe sometimes we get stuck too. We don't realize we can just walk away from a situation and make ourselves safer, right? So that's something that I thought was a little bit curious there. So some of the questions, if you notice some aberrant behavior in your team or in your horse or anybody in your life, and you've been asking them, maybe to help you with something or do something, you can check in, does he really understand what I'm asking? Are we on the same page here? Because that clarity piece is key. Then can he do it? Does he have the competence to be able to do it? I don't know about you guys, but I've worked with so many high performers that sometimes I just give them stuff and humans, and I would give them a task and then forget that they've never done it before. And just they're so good at everything that I just assume that they can get that done too. Meanwhile, they're having a little mini heart attack and they don't want to say no to me. So, and then they delay the deadline or something happens. So this is where you need to be checking in. Then there's the is he willing? So we always want to look at the power of choice, and that's something that we've been looking at a lot over the past few years with Lemon Squeezy, is what is he like? Because quite frankly, he was a fairly perfunctory horse, meaning he would kind of do what you would ask, but it didn't, not with any kind of eagerness or joy. It's just kind of doing it. And you know how that is when you work with people in the office who are just doing and going through the motions. It's okay, but it's not, for me, it's not ideal as a partnership. I really like other people to be invested in the vision, invested in the goal. And I love my horses to be that way too. And if they're not invested in the same thing that I want them to be, I want to do, then I either need to figure out how to get them more excited about it, or we need to change what we're doing. You know, that's really true. So is he willing? And then it may be that it's just too hard. It was too much of an ask. So how can I make this better or easier for the other party? You know, what could I do? So in this case, you know, so he's in there being grumpy mumpy, and you know, people didn't know what to do with that. They were supposed to be working together with him around an obstacle course, and he's just standing there making grumpy face anytime anybody came up to him. So at the end of the session, well, actually the next day, he wasn't very happy with me. You know, he's just like, dude, why'd you put me in there? You know, he's just not happy in general. So I had to do some repair on the relationship. So what I ended up doing with him was, instead of you know, like working him or even riding him at that point, we went for pack walks. So I did get him tacked up because I wanted to, that was a whole different situation. But I took my 2 dogs and we just walk around the property, and we did that every day for a long time, just to get his mind out of it. And then I also did body work on him, still do that all the time. So you can see there's just, I think I'm using Masterson method there, and he's able to relax. So his interactions with me are not always about me asking him to do something and then making him do something that he'd maybe rather not want to. So this is mostly around building trust, is really about being calm, being consistent, being clear, being empathetic. I'm not always the best at that. My consistency is not always great. I really work on that, but sometimes life happens and you fall off and you miss. And that's okay. You know, you just want to do what you can. And as a leader, just showing up and talking to people, even if it's just for a minute to check in, is better than not showing up at all. And I think the same thing is true for your horse. You're just checking in and you know, letting them know that you're there, and you brush them or just do something nice for them if you don't have time to do other stuff. And the other thing is, the cool thing about animals is that they pick up your energy from afar. So even if you can't be there physically, you can think about them, and you can think about brushing them or doing something that's really awesome with them, and give them that image in your mind and kind of connect. I've worked with some wonderful animal communicators, and I think a couple are on the line today. And it's really true, the horse will pick that up. So there are really infinite options for ways to connect, and you can do that with all animals. So number 3, this is stay under threshold, which means you don't want to go over, don't want to lose your top there. So we don't want to get too worried and flip out about things at work, at home, and certainly not with our horses. So in this training, more recent training that I did, they taught us this thing called calm default stationing. And you can see Lemon Squeezy's doing it there. He's just standing quietly next to me with his head down. I don't even have the rope, the lead rope. And then my cue was just to put my hand over my wrist. You could see that there. But actually, he didn't even care about that. That was kind of a human thing. And I taught him how to do that. And what I found is it's really great, because you can use it when they start to build up a little steam about something and they're getting a little too anxious, a little too ramped up, even leading them. You can take that breath and ask for the calm default, and they immediately reset. So the equivalent of this for humans is something I've talked about in both of my books. It's finding the neutral place, which is where you just relax and breathe and get very, very present to yourself in that moment. Very present. Bring all of your energy vectors that we talked about in the beginning that are, you know, going in a million different directions. Bring them all back to yourself in one breath. In fact, you can just do it right now. You can just go. And you just land. And in calm default, they often use a countdown. So they'll just, you know, start that, and then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And they usually do some type of treat, reward, or click or treat. And you can do that for yourself if you want. You can eat a carrot or an M&M. And it's just a nice way to really avoid trigger stacking and avoid accumulating pressure. So even between your daily tasks at work, you can put yourself in the equivalent of a calm default. Is, okay, I'm going to check email, and you get all spun up after the email, right? Okay, now I need to do a quick calm default. I'm going to give myself a quiet, take that breath, land in that neutral place for several seconds or a minute, and then go ahead and pick up the phone and make your next call, or reach out, get onto a Zoom or whatever it is that you're doing. And your horse will be a lot happier there as well. Then number 4 is, I'm the queen of baby steps, and all you guys who've worked with me for a long time, you know how important it is to break things down to their simplest components. We want to make things as easy as possible. And in fact, the reason why Lemon Squeezy is called Lemon Squeezy was that I always say easy peasy lemon squeezy way before I ever bought that horse. And his registered name is Lemon K. And my husband was like, what are you going to call him? And I said, I don't know. And he's like, well, why don't you call him Lemon Squeezy? And I said, well, that's just ridiculous. I can't have a horse named Lemon Squeezy. And he said, sure you can. And I felt kind of silly, but it stuck. So that's his name. So anyway, back to the baby steps. In positive reinforcement training, they call them approximations, which is one step at a time. So what we want to do is make sure as leaders as well that we are leading our team really one step at a time. If you want to look out several steps, no problem with that. I'm all about strategic planning and things, but we want to be really clear about what step we're on right now, okay? And not start asking for too much too soon. This happens a lot. Gosh, in my corporate life, we would have it all the time when we were working on big projects and things. There was so much going on all the time. People were like, oh, well, we need to do this, we need to do that, and we need this, with that. Yes, and each person can only do one thing at a time. So let's make sure it's the high impact action that we're taking that will advance the goal one thing at a time. So that's what we're doing here. I've got this little buoy target. All I'm asking is for him just to put his nose on that target. Notice he's not, he doesn't have a halter on, there's no lead rope. He could go anywhere in that field, anywhere. And there's grass in there, and there's hay in his run-in, which you can't see, but he could go anywhere. And his choice was to be there. So getting back into that power of choice and engagement is really important. If we are trying to do too many things at once, we often start to get into overwhelm and we can shut our own selves down. We can, if we're asking too many things of our horse at once, like too many aids at the same time, we can shut them down. Any of you riders probably know that. I know that. And that's the equivalent of analysis paralysis, where you're just like, I don't know, so you do nothing. So the power of the baby step is you just do the easiest next thing, and that will help you build momentum. Okay, so speaking of steps, key 5 is to know the success criteria. So when you're at the step, what does success look like each time? We really need to be clear on that, because a lot of times what will happen is you're working along, and I work with super high achievers all the time, and most of you guys on the line are that way, and always wanting to do it right and do it well and do a lot and move things forward and all sort of stuff. But the thing is, we're not always clear about, well, have we done it enough? What are we really trying to achieve in that specific step? Remember, horses react to clarity, level of intent, and self-trust. So here, Lemon Squeezy had some back problems and got real resistant to tacking up and being ridden, and just was explosive last year. And so I had to restart everything. So one of the things I wanted to do in this picture, what you're seeing is he has free choice. This is his field. He can leave. Hopefully he won't go running off my tack, but I trusted him enough that we were okay. So my success criteria here was for him to, and I had to break it down to get to this point. First, I needed to be able to be next to him and put my hands on his back. That took a little while for him to even allow me to do that. Then to put the saddle and the girth, I did all of these things stepwise, and to be up on the stand like that too, and then to move the saddle around on his back, just like you would if you're starting a young horse, breaking it all down. And then also with the level of relaxation. So I'm looking for complete acceptance, relaxation at this stage, or I'm not going to move to the next stage. So that was my success criteria. So we want to be really clear about that as leaders at work, and for yourself. What are your own success criteria? How do you know when you've achieved the thing, whatever it is? You know, we want to be very, very clear on that. Sometimes we set a super high bar for ourselves, which is awesome, but we don't give ourselves that stepwise incremental plan with the appropriate criteria to be able to achieve the goal. And then we punish ourselves for not being able to meet the goal. Sound familiar? This can happen a lot. It can happen at every level, from a little bit to, you know, I've failed in my career, even though they're making, you know, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars and feeling like a failure. I've worked with people like that. So I want to be really clear about this. All right, next step. So now when you take the next step, you know, you've had your success criteria, and the next step here was for me to be on him with that same freedom of choice, right? He has a halter on, there's no reins, there's no nothing. But what I did here is I relaxed the criteria, meaning a wide open space was a little bit too much. So I opted to do this in the indoor arena for the first time, which made me feel safer. I probably could have done it outside, but it made me feel safer. And as a leader, if I'm not feeling safe about something and I ask one of my people to do something, that's a mixed message. Your energy vectors are not in alignment. You're not really in integrity, and they're going to feel that vibe. So super important. I didn't want him to feel any type of insecurity in me while we were reintroducing a rider on his back, the back that had been incredibly sore, right? So he took it great. He didn't care. He was fine. But this is about relaxing the criteria. So be flexible with yourself. Then key 6 is super important. It's all about rewarding the try. A lot of folks drive themselves really, really hard and they don't acknowledge their own efforts. Leaders do that. It can also do that with your team. You know, just get caught up in moving something forward and then you don't celebrate until the end. So I think it's really great if we can celebrate these little tiny wins all along the way. And that celebration can look like anything. It's just a thank you. It's a moment of gratitude. It's a little, you know, food treat in this case. So in this case, it was a super windy winter day, and you know, yet he was doing everything I asked of him, and you can see me giving him a little treat there, and he's not mugging me for treats. He's not on top of me, super polite, and so we want to be rewarding the try as much as possible, acknowledging it. And then number 7 is so critical. Reinforce what you want. So really thinking about what are you reinforcing right now in your own life and in your work? And what does that reinforcement even look like? So the reinforcement is the number of repetitions that you're doing of the thing and then what you're getting for it. So the number of repetitions that you're doing may be subconscious. It may be an inner dialogue that's saying, oh, you can do better. You should do better. You didn't do that well enough. You need to do this better. Okay, that is being reinforced. That's a reinforcing dialogue in your internal, it's inside yourself. Not good. So we want to notice what we are reinforcing in ourselves as leaders so that we can be that calm, confident, clear, trusted leader for anybody. First of all, for ourselves. And secondly, for anyone else in our lives, including our horses. So what are you reinforcing? Be very specific about what it is that you're reinforcing. And then how often are you able to reinforce that? How often? You know, what's the frequency of reinforcement? So here, Lemon Squeezy had been initially terrified of walking over a tarp. I never schooled the tarp. What I did do is I allowed him to start to feel that the indoor was a safe place. And when he started to feel that the indoor was a safe place, he started exploring different things. And I'd just walk all over there. I didn't drive him anywhere. Didn't tell him to really do anything. I just allowed him to explore, just set up that environment. And lo and behold, he suddenly decided one day that he's just going to easily follow me over that tarp. And if you notice, we are in step there, which is a sign of congruence, energetic, clarity of intention, followership, leadership, all right there, which was pretty awesome. And he did it with this beautiful, calm demeanor. And that's really kind of been his MO, is I just expose him to a lot of different things, and then he can choose whether or not he wants to follow me. Now, sometimes there's going to be, you know, he can't always just choose. Sometimes he just has to has to just do it. So we're working on the relationship part of this, and being able to reinforce the level of trust and exploration and curiosity can yield this type of outcome. So this is something we don't hear about too much. Key 8 is about dwell time. And I wrote in here, dwell time, do not interrupt. Dwell time is processing time. And we need to know the difference between a no, checked out, like a shutdown, and dwelling, pondering. I didn't know about this years ago. I just, would think it was distraction or something else. But if you think about it, think about yourself. How much processing time do you need? When you're presented with a new concept, how much time do you need to really think about it? Do you want to ponder, noodle on it, study, then come back, ask some questions? Even a decision too, to pursue something or not pursue something. Some people, they just go for it. They're an easy yes. They move things forward very quickly. Other people need a tremendous amount of processing time. They need more information, got to check in with other sources, resources, people, all good. So here, what's happening in this picture, some people would be like, geez, you're just walking your horse into the barn and he stopped, you got to get after him. He can't be doing that. Well, yeah, ideally, I'd love for him just to walk right in, and he does most of the time, but that day he didn't. And what's important to notice about this picture is his energy vectors, right? So his face is looking out towards his herd. So he has a pull energy going towards the herd, but look at that right ear. That right ear is on me, right? That right ear is on me. So that to me is the most important part of this picture, is he's standing square. He's not like, all awkwardly, he's in balance, and he's just weighing his options. He's like, I got this pull. I better go talk to Lila, whoever was over there. But I've got my mom here. I've got cool stuff that's going to happen that we're going to do. And that ear, I just had to wait, let him process, and he walked right in, and he's been walking right in. He's doing great. So we also need to be able to understand when it's a no, and when the horse or person is starting to check out. That's a little bit of an intuitive feel. So as you get to be in better relationship with people and with animals, you'll be able to see that. And if there's a real hesitation, like a no, you can choose to completely just respect that and just say, hey, it feels like this isn't really the right thing right now. Totally no problem. Let me know if it is of interest in the future, or do you know someone else who should run this project or something, right? So you're continuing the dialogue without putting too much pressure on the no, because no is important to be able to respect that. And then checked out is usually a fear-based response. They've either an overwhelm, shut down, we put too much at them. So we need to start unlayering that and pull out what's really going on here and be a detective. All right, so number 9, probably something that people have seen a lot if you've worked with horses: use of pressure, release of pressure. Again, we want to understand where our energy vectors are pointing. And then if we're the one putting the pressure on, we need to know that we're doing it. Sometimes we put unconscious pressure on ourselves and on others. We need to know. So we want to start becoming aware of any kind of pressures you're putting on others and on yourself, where you're putting the pressure, what's the intention of the pressure. We're going to be very intentional about the use of pressure, and apply it, and then wait for a moment and release it, see what happens. So the questions here are, where are you holding pressure on yourself? And then notice when you release pressure, how it feels. So with this picture here, I was just teaching Lemon Squeezy some simple leg yield. This was, I think, one of our first year together. So, it's X-race horses, kind of all kinds of things going on there. But there's a leg yield, which means my right leg is putting a little bit of pressure on him, which is asking his right hind leg. You can see it going underneath him. That's exactly the response I was asking for, was for him to take that inside hind and move it over when I put the pressure of my leg on him, like that, in that specific position. So we have that vector going that way, right? And then we also have energy vectors coming towards us because he's still trotting, moving towards. So we want to be balancing all of those. There's other ones as well, but those are the 2 primary ones, is the forward energy vector. So keeping the forward rhythm And then also see if you can take one step to the side. But if I didn't have the forward vector, I would end up going all sideways. Does that make sense? So what we want to do is think about what that is in your work. Think about what that is with your team. Where are the vectors? Is there sideways pressure coming in from some other place? Is there top-down pressure coming in that's crunching and squashing and compressing your ability to do your work? Backwards pressure from the past, something that's happened that people are freaked out about, that they're worried is going to happen again, and layoffs, all kinds of things. It's a changing world now every single day. So there's all kinds of new opportunities for growth or stress. So we just want to be cognizant of this. And then really importantly, how does it feel to release pressure and feel that open and expansive space? And then finally, we want to be sure to take action and move those feet. A lot of horse trainers historically always talk about moving the feet, moving the feet, moving the feet. I've done that many, many times with all kinds of different natural horsemanship. And I did a lot of German dressage with side reins and all kinds of different things. And now I use a whole bunch of different things depending on what's going on with that. 'Cause sometimes I don't want the feet moving. I want the brain to move without the feet moving, which can be a little tricky with the horse. But being able to just settle and be quiet and have a calm thinking mind, and not necessarily a reactive, physically moving body is really a beautiful thing to see. But you do have to move the feet, or maybe it's you do have to move the feet. So with Lemon Squeezy, in order to we were just starting a little bit of balance in the round here. He's such a good guy. So he was starting to figure out where is that bit and how do I move forward and not get crunched up. So that's what I was asking him here. That's what I was asking him here to go ahead and continue to move forward and in a balance, in a rhythm, and carry me forward. And we're working on that. But the more important thing here for us as leaders in our own lives is to move our own feet and use the metaphor of moving our own feet. Where do we need to move our feet more? What goal are you trying to achieve? And you're hesitating on the action because you don't think you have everything you need yet. That happens a lot. I can't do that until this happens or that happens. I'm telling you, you can do something. There's always one little thing we can do to move something forward. Every single day, there's some little tiny thing you can do to move something forward. And a lot of us get caught up in everything has to be perfect before we advance the thing to the next step. And I'm here to tell you that big things happen as a result of these tiny little incremental baby steps. And that's nothing new, but it's really, really true, including Lemon Squeezy and I wrote Reinventing Greatness back in 2019 that came out. And it's all about leading through change and building trust and confidence in this kind of changing environment. And I would not have been able to do that, and the other book too, without a progression of baby steps, a sequential progression of baby steps over time, and that commitment. So even now, what I'm noticing, I'll just share with you, I'm noticing that all of these different types of lessons and training approaches and responses from the horses have showed me that you can really make radical change over not a huge amount of time if you're willing to really apply these 10 different keys and take the steps, take the energy into consideration, understand the vectors, and be able to be okay with being a beginner in the space. Like there's some of these concepts will be old hat to you guys, and it's like, oh yeah, I do it all the time, all right. But there might be one or two tiny little things where you're like, ooh, never tried that before. And if you try it for the first time and it feels really uncomfortable, that's great because it's a beginner's mindset. And we want to be able to say, ooh, this is a new potential skill. Let me be really stinky at it for a little while and experiment with it, give myself permission and grace to not be good at it and just fumble through and trust the process and trust myself to keep showing up for myself in this new awkward space so that I can get better at it. Because we're always moving from this place of I guess we start with unconscious incompetence, where we're just happy-go-lucky and don't even know how bad we are, to the conscious incompetence, which is the most painful place, where you're like consciously aware of how terrible you are at something. It's all part of the learning process. To conscious competence, where it's like, okay, I'm kind of good at this, but I have to really work at it and focus, focus, focus. And then finally we get into that place of flow where it's unconscious competence and you just let it rip. You know, and you guys doing that at work, doing it with your horses or anywhere. And that's just fun. So I'm working through that same process right now as I prepare for this TEDx talk next month. And, you know, kind of watching myself through the process and laughing at all of the gaffes and different things that are happening along the way. So those are, let me go ahead and show you the summary slide. So here's a summary of the 10 keys. So we have knowing the antecedent arrangement, know the setting, the relationship, make sure you try to be that safe place, stay under threshold, don't use a bunch of trigger stacking, meaning things are building up, building up, building up, and then you blow. Want to use that calm default. Use sequential baby steps and know what criteria at each step is appropriate that you want. Reward that try, reinforce what you want, and even go through your own life, kind of inventory your own life and think about what am I maybe unconsciously reinforcing in myself that's good and that maybe could be improved a little bit or maybe even ditched. Dwell time, think about that. You know, don't interrupt. If you need a lot of dwell time, then give yourself the grace of the dwell time. Don't worry about it. Don't kick at it. Don't pick at it. Don't pressure it. Just let it be. It's all good. Use pressure and release of pressure. And then take that action and move those feet. So thank you guys for joining. I'm going to go ahead and open the line for questions right now. So let me go ahead and stop the screen share. And we can go ahead and get in there. Whoops, where'd you guys go? There we go. Okay, perfect. Excellent. So let me go ahead and stop this and we will go ahead and get with the questions.